A season for everything. Ecclesiastes 3 says, "There is a season for everything, and a time for every matter under the heavens. A time for giving birth, and a time for dying. A time for planting, and a time for uprooting what was planted. A time for killing, and a time for healing. A time for tearing down, and a time for building up. A time for crying, and a time for laughing. A time for mourning, and a time for dancing. A time for throwing stones, and a time for gathering stones. A time for embracing, and a time for avoiding embraces. A time for searching, and a time for losing. A time for keeping, and a time for throwing away. A time for tearing, and a time for repairing. A time for keeping silent, and a time for speaking. A time for loving, and a time for hating. A time for war, and a time for peace." Maybe you needed to hear this today. And I believe if you clicked on this video, it is because you needed to hear it. There is a time for everything in life. You're not late, you're not early, you're just on time, exactly like God, because God never fails. I feel like right now it's so difficult to just take your time. We want everything now. We believe we must have things now. We must get to where we want now. It's like if you don't get it now, it's like you're failing. But believe me, and I say it to myself as well, I'm not gonna die tomorrow. Like, I can take one step at a time today. And the past is already gone. And when you believe that, and when you start finally embracing the present and the presence of God in your whole presence today, you will realize that life can be that simple, and there is literally time for everything since the beginning of time. So why should you go against that? Why should you put yourself this crazy expectations? It's okay to have goals, and it's okay to move towards them, but it's also okay to take time to rest and to take the time to collect, the fruit of what you've been working on. So start believing that, and in some kind of way, it will make you feel like you're exactly on time. So you won't be rushing, you won't be late. You will just be. Learn how to be. I'm learning as well. It's not easy, because our ego and the way life is going on a rush, and the way we are supposed to be accomplishing deadlines and dates, and be married by 25, get your house already by 25, make your first million by 25. There's so many big goals that are great, but what if you don't get it by that time? That doesn't make you worthless. That doesn't make you late in life. That doesn't make you stupid. That doesn't make you not enough. Don't be so hard on yourself because you're just on time. And what if you get that thing by certain age, or by certain moment, by certain deadline, and then you're not happy, and then it wasn't what you thought it would be, and then, like, believe me, because most of the times that's it, you got it, and it's just like, oh wow, that's it, that was it, oh my God. that wasn't such a big deal, you know? I thought it would be harder. Or all of this sometimes is, I thought it would be harder, and some other times it's just like, so I fought all my life for this, or I worked all my life for this. And then it's like, what if you would have trusted, and what if you just decide to trust God's time and let yourself be? Because at the end, your glory is going to be immense when you do it by God's side, you know? And I'm finally learning this. I'm finally seeing this way. I'm finally learning how to be, and I can tell you how beautiful it is. I've lived my entire life in survival mode. I talk about it a lot in my videos, and I've healed so much about it, but I always felt like there's something wrong. There's always something that I need to again do, or some traumas coming up. But believe me, like, once you finally decide to give your pain to God and to heal through God, there's no other healing on earth that can make you feel like that and can like heal you in this way. And I even want to cry out of joy, because it's so true and it's so beautiful, and it's, God is the biggest healer, you know? It's not even like, how to say, I really want to say this, but I used to think I needed to do the inner work, you know, like heal, do shadow work, heal my traumas, do like crazy healing sessions, like meditations, or like inner child work and all of this. And it helped me get closer to God, because I came from a point of where I was so disconnected, and I was just really seeing myself through the lens of people, not through the lens of God, and not even through my own lenses, but just through the lenses of attention, attraction, feeling beautiful, looking successful, but not feeling even, you know? And all these practices, of course, like the healing, the inner work, and all of this got me closer to God, because they got me to this point now. But it's not that those practices per se get you closer to God, because it is you deciding to give yourself to God who makes the real thing, you know? And you don't need to do all of that. Like, of course, it's nice to do it, because you get to know yourself, and you get to know your traumas, your life, your blessings, also your gifts. You get to know yourself a lot. But the best way to get to know yourself, it's really through God. And it is the most fulfilling way, I promise. Because sometimes when you also begin to do all this work, you know, your inner work, it feels like it's never ending, and it feels like you're always like, even if you're progressing, at some point you're always coming back down again and again, and it's like coming up and coming down. Like, of course, life, it's also like this, you know? You're never, as I read in this text, the Bible, who says it very well, there's time for everything, of course. But once you're walking on God's path, it's literally like, you know, you've already been healed, and you can already take that weight off your shoulders, because it's done, it's given, and God already took it for you when he died on the cross. And until you decide to open yourself to this truth and decide to experience it by yourself, you won't believe and you won't understand. You won't understand, you know? It's like, I'm telling you, but until you don't take the choice by yourself, you will feel like there's something like weird, you know? But that's the devil talking. That's the devil trying to make you not believe. That's all your insecurities, and that's all of, maybe if you didn't have a closer relationship with God, or maybe if you thought you behaved so wrong that there is no way God can forgive you and all of this, then your mind and your ego, your fears will start making all these stories of like how God's truth, it's not what you need, but certainly it really is. But I encourage you to experience it by yourself, because that's what I'm only doing, just sharing my experience. I'm not like, how to say, I'm not a priest. I'm just a woman who tells her experience on how opening up to God made me realize that life is just so beautiful, you know, and not because of it, but because of God. Really, He created everything, so how could it not? You know. And learn how to depend on God. I'm also on my way, you know, but it's so beautiful to see how He's really everywhere and how He's really taking care of everything and how He never misses, He never fails, and everything is perfect on His timing and everything is perfect on His way. So trust that way, you know. Why would you trust someone else's way? Why would you trust society's way? Why would you trust what your parents told you or what your friends tell you, or what your mind and your ego and fears are sometimes telling you? Why would you trust that when you can trust God's path that is perfect and is literally perfect for you and made uniquely for you, you know? So dare to trust that. It's a leap of faith. I know it takes a leap of faith, but you can do it. So subscribe, leave a little comment and like if you wanna keep sharing with me about this journey. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.